We've got two incredible guests with us today. First up, we've got Zoe Curnoe from the Coalition working on Gears 5. Hello, Zoe.
Great to
Welcome.
see you.
Welcome.
Thank
And
you.
we've got Rory McGuire from Blackbird Interactive working on, I don't know. And maybe we'll find out a little bit about what you guys are working on. But our mutual friend Dana reached out to me. Is it Dana or Dana? Dana, okay. Reached out to me and said, I've got a great idea for a segment. There's a Women in Games scholarship named after Roberta Williams, of all people, a legend in video games. She worked at Sierra Online making adventure games. It's about getting more women into making video games,
Yes.
which you are very passionate about,
I
Zoe.
am very, yes.
Yes. So Zoe, take us into everything that this scholarship kind of entails, because it sounds incredible.
For sure. So what we're really proud of is it isn't just a scholarship.
Yep.
So two students will win full scholarships to VFS. So their entire tuition paid for.
Okay.
And there are multiple smaller scholarships as well.
So at the end of the program, they're going to get their choice of working at either the Coalition or Blackbird.
I think what we'll end up doing is we'll evaluate students. We're going to look at the
Based
pool of
on what they've
applicants.
done. Okay,
Yeah, and
okay.
then we make fairly different games. Like we're both making AAA games, but I think we'll evaluate the student that is the best fit for each studio.
Okay.
And then they'll know who they're going to be working with. They'll come and witness that. Like for the year that they're at VFS, they'll come and study with us. They'll mentor with us. They'll see games being made, and they'll. Like in both cases, in both studios, we have multiple games being worked on, so they'll get to ask all sorts of questions and stuff too.
Okay, so we're finding out a little bit of stuff in this interview, which is supposed to be about the scholarship, but we're finding multiple games in both
Little
studios. I
hints
hope you're
are coming
taking
out.
notes at home. Rory, why did you want to be involved in this?
There's been a number of things over the years. One of the catalyst moments was E3 a year ago, last year. Yeah, last year. And it was an amazing game for the amount of women that were in games being shown, but every single time a male creator would come on stage and then introduce this female character, and it was just inauthentic and disingenuous. Like it just made no sense. And you know, a little bit of that is acceptable, but when it's so systemic in this case, it was not acceptable. And
It's definitely gotten better in the business.
It has.
And I've been to every E3, and it's been fascinating to watch. There has been some positive progression. The booth babes are gone.
Yeah.
There are more women, involved in the creation of titles. It's not just the marketing side or the PR side. Not that those aren't important jobs as well, but it's been good to see. But yes, a lot more can be done.
Yeah, and I think we look at it obviously from an ethical perspective, in that it's the right thing to do, but it's also business-wise, it's the right thing to do as well. That,
Right.
Men are far more productive when they work with women. Numerous studies have shown from like Harvard Business Review, and then also in terms of the authenticity of our games. If you have any amount of women playing your games, and newsflash, most games have women playing them.
Yeah.
The experience is far better if there are women designers contributing to that.
Right. Zoe, can you tell us a little bit about the women that work at the Coalition? You've got a pretty good
absolutely.
collection of women that work at the studio.
We do. Something that is amazing at our studio and actually quite unique for the studios I've worked at, 'cause I've worked at a few, is we have a really strong presence of women on the leadership team.
Yep.
So our senior leadership team is actually 50% women.
Fantastic.
Our production team is over 50% women. A lot of them are senior producers like myself and leading whole parts of the game. And so you definitely see that influence in our studio, which isn't totally common in our industry.
Yeah.
And so what I really would love to see, though, is we only have 2 female designers on our entire team. And so I'd love to see that change and see those women go on to become design leaders. So something actually I think Rod talked about last time he was here was bringing Bonnie Jean Ma back to our studio.
Yeah.
So she's our franchise narrative lead. So she's in a creative role, and seeing her, and now I'm seeing some of the younger women in the studio are going, ooh, that's cool. It creates that atmosphere of, I want to do that.
That's awesome.
So there's a lot of slogans out there in the industry that say, if she can see it, she'll want to be it.
Yeah.
And so we need to send out those positive role models too.
Was there any decision making along those lines with putting Kate front and center in the game as well? Was that part of, or was it just narratively it just made sense?
Narratively it just made sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to say probably no. Like in all those conversations we had about
it's
it,
coincidental
it was more,
in this place.
Well, I wouldn't say it was coincidental. It made sense.
Yeah.
Because she was such a strong character in Gears 4. She
Sure.
had this great story arc.
Yep.
I mean, seeing everything that she went through, spoiler at the end of Gears 4, what she has to do to her mother and the sacrifice that she makes, and having that continue into Gears 5, it just made sense that was her story.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't this big conversation like, we must make this change. It was more, Gears has actually always had quite interesting female characters in it. You might not think that, but it has. And the women go into combat, and they are a part of the squad. So I think it was a natural progression, actually.
And just extrapolating on what was already laid before.
Exactly. It made sense in the universe. Yeah.
That is fantastic. I want to talk a little bit about what got you into games, because we were talking before we were rolling that I interviewed you in 2006, and that was your first time ever being interviewed on camera.
It was, absolutely.
And you were working at Backbone.
I was,
on Sonic
Rivals on the PSP.
So that's incredible. We've been doing this a long time, Zoe. What?
I feel old right now. No, it's all good.
It's good, man. It's good to have a career in this business.
It's true.
Yeah. But what made you decide you wanted to make games?
You know what? I played games my whole life, from a little kid, mostly because I have two older brothers.
Yeah.
So they were really into it, and we would play, we'd play a lot of Medal of Honor together.
Yeah.
Before that, a lot of Nintendo. And then I was a photographer, so I went to fine art school. My family is a very art family, so it was very normal in my family to go to art school and do something creative.
Cool.
So I did that, and coming out of it, though, I just wanted, it was like the web.com industry was just firing. It was the 90s. It was all of that was happening.
Yep.
Electronic music was super popular, so all of that technology and creative mixed together interested me. And I just met someone, a friend actually in Vancouver, who said, you'd be a really good video game producer. And I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know it was a thing. I knew about film. I didn't know about video game production. And so he worked at EA.
Yeah.
He mentioned that, and then I ended up taking a program, and in the program it was a multimedia program.
Was it at VFS? Or?
It was at UBC.
At UBC,
it was
okay.
Back in 2000.
Okay.
And we had a project manager from EA came and taught us for one of our classes. And that sparked the, I want to do that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Rory, did you see that there was a need at Blackbird to hire a lot more women too?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel in production and art we have a pretty good distribution of women. Like there's a decent ratio, but on the design side in particular, there's a deficit, and there's kind of always been a deficit as long as I've been in the industry.
Right.
And it's something I wanted to change, and we were actually staffing for one of our teams. We were staffing for about 8 design positions,
yes.
And I think I saw about 200 applications, and I would say 8 or 9 of them were women.
Yeah.
So
we have to say something to any women that are watching here, right? That's part of this discussion
absolutely.
Here is take the jump.
No, absolutely.
We
Yeah.
want you.
Yeah.
And in this case, what we felt was happening too was that it wasn't about hiring women, it was actually about opportunities for women before hiring even begins.
Right.
And that's partly what inspired this scholarship as well, is that when a woman is going into VFS and their instructor says, do you want to be a producer or a designer, there's a lot of pressure pushing them towards production and less towards design.
Wow.
So we wanted a little more positive gravity well towards design, so to speak.
Is that what the scholarship is focusing on?
Yeah.
Is to
Exactly.
go into the design world?
Into game design.
Yeah.
And that's both level design, gameplay, to some degree UI design, but
Narrative.
design. Yeah, narrative. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you, been around different types of designers to see, what might be some of the differences between a female designer and a male designer? Or
That is a great question. I don't know if anyone has ever asked me that before.
Yeah.
I think that is fascinating. You know what? I don't think particularly there's necessarily a difference there in the way they design or the way they work. I don't know if you've seen that, but I think it's what Rory was referring to is more when you have diverse teams. That includes race, sexual orientation, gender. You get smarter teams.
Yeah.
There's a lot of research around that.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that's what's important is getting that diverse conversation happening. So it's not just a bunch of people that are exactly the same, high-fiving each other and going, that's a good idea, and no one else giving that other perspective. It is really important.
When you came into the business in 2006, it was a very different industry.
It was.
And there probably were a lot less women working in games at that time.
Yeah.
Is it starting to change? And do you feel like there's just this natural magnetic attraction for females that play that they're finding their way to make?
I think there is. I think still on the design side is where we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
So I do see on the leadership side, I think that's changing. You know, we have some people out there we can also look to, like Bonnie Ross, right, from 343.
Yes.
We didn't really have those women in the past to look up to, so that's
Jade
there.
Raymond,
Jade
kicking butt at
Raymond,
Stadia.
totally, exactly.
Actually, that whole Star Wars initiative blew my mind at EA when they were building the Star Wars gaming sort of lineup. There were so many women involved in so many key roles. Right. It was inspiring. It was cool, you know. Because I'm with you. I feel like the more diversity that we have across the board with our games, the more interesting that they're going to be, you know.
Yeah, I think that's really the main point. Is like, what will the stories be that they want to tell? What is the slightly different perspective that person's going to give?
So what do you say to, you know, I don't know, a 15-year-old or an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old that maybe has been playing games for a long time and loves them, but is unsure of her own ability to go out and be a designer?
It's come join us. I mean, that's really my message, is it's the most fun industry to work in.
Yeah.
If you find yourself at that studio where you are supported and you have a mentor, you have a creative director that wants more women in your studio, you find a sponsor that wants you to be there, it is the most amazing experience. And you know, there's a lot of bad press out there about what has happened. That exists. I'm not saying that it doesn't.
Sure.
But there are so many positive experiences for them to have. And the more of them that there are, the more positivity is going to be bred from that.
Yes.
Right? So I just think it's come out and try it. You know, it's a challenge and it's going to be hard, but it's so rewarding and you're going to love it. And what else could you want to do? You make video games all day long?
It's rad work if you can get it, right? Rory, you've worked with VFS on various occasions.
Absolutely.
You've come to the pitch and plays and things like that. What is it about this environment and this school and the, you know, Chris Mitchell's heading up the game design program. Yeah, I've seen those kids, they're tired. But they make amazing things in a very little bit of time.
They work so hard.
Yeah, the school is really, certainly in the top 10, top 5 of schools in North America producing game designers. At Blackbird, we recently had Chris Mitchell come by, and he was like, "Oh, can I round up all the VFS grads for a photo?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he ended up taking like half of the design staff. Like, it was surreal. Like, and I knew that in my head how many VFS grads we had, but to actually see the numbers of all these empty seats and all these people standing over with Chris.
That's great.
But yeah, I absolutely love what they're doing with the school. The designers they produce are fantastic, and yeah, it's a great program and continues to be an amazing program.
Do you feel like that's especially relevant for the future of games, is to have some education and some, like, I mean, it's not just a bunch of theory. You get a lot of hands-on time here, and you also have access to a lot of professionals that are in the field, and there's some assessment of that work from professionals. Do you feel that that's an important part of it, or can you come in out of the blue and, you know, tinker on some editors and be a game maker without all of that educational background?
I think you know, games are a unique medium in that you know, there's huge 1,000-person dev teams, but there's also 3-person, 2-person, 1-person teams that are making games too. So you know, there's not a lot of media like that, or there's not a lot of media like that. However, I would absolutely encourage people to go to school just to learn things that are outside of their comfort zone, outside of what they know, and then more importantly is establish connections. Like, film is a great reference point where there's hundreds of film schools across North America, and most of the great filmmakers come out of like 4 or 5 of them. And from my perspective, VFS is in that echelon for games. So
yeah, it's really amazing what they've done. It's been eye-opening for me to be based out of the cafe here, right on campus, and a lot of my guests have been, you know, they've graduated from this school. They've come from VFS, you know. They might not have started in games or whatever, but they've ended up there, and it's been really amazing to see all that.
Yeah, one of the lead designers actually on our campaign team was from GDO1, so the very first game design class.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
They're everywhere, and I think there are a lot of our studios, and we've also seen, because there was a previous Women in Games scholarship here quite a few years ago, and we've taught some of those women, and they've gone on to be incredibly successful. One of my mission producers was one of the women who won that scholarship.
That's great.
So, you know, they're out there. So let's get some more of them, and hopefully we're going to see some more content creators.
So how many women percentage-wise work at the coalition right now?
We're about 15% right now.
Okay, so we want to get that number up.
We do, absolutely.
And at Blackbird?
The design, or the overall staff, I think we're just under 20%, but the design staff is around 10, 12%, and we definitely want to get that higher. That's partly what inspired the scholarship.
Okay. Yeah, you know, I didn't go to school for game making or even what I do. I went to be an actor, and I was in an acting program that was filled with women. That was part of my reason to want to be an actor, truth be told. I wanted to meet women. Worked out pretty good. But I always felt like we needed more storytellers, you know, that women needed to also not just be performers, but to also to find ways to get behind cameras and to program the future of content a little bit, you know, and I think this really speaks to all of that.
Yeah, thank you. That's our goal. So
Yeah.
that's a great way to sum it up.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about what you guys are working on. I know we're in dangerous territory with you, Rory.
I'm going to get side-eye from Dana if I say too much.
Snipers have suddenly infiltrated our perimeter here. But we saw the escape at E3,
Yes.
the escape mode
Yes,
for
super
Gears 5.
fun.
It was crazy fun.
Yeah. Did you play it?
Worked right away. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is cool. This is this could be its own
You
thing.
should hear when you play test at the studio.
Yeah.
It's just hooting and hollering and yelling and screaming.
Yeah, I was
You'd
playing
think
with
someone was-
like this
something was
Italian guy beside me,
Yeah.
and we were screaming at each other. No, run this! Worked out pretty
Did you
good.
leave anyone behind?
No, we
No?
got out.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
nice.
we did
Nice
okay.
job.
Yeah, we got out. So that we know is coming. How do you describe Escape for people that don't know?
Escape is 3-player,
Yeah.
so 3-player co-op.
Yeah.
3 new characters, Lonnie, Keegan, and Mac. Awesome characters, actually, who are super fun. They make me laugh out loud when you hear what they say in the game.
Yeah.
And they're hive busters, so they're going into these hives. They are going in and planting a venom bomb, and then you have to outrun that venom bomb to survive, and you can leave no one behind. So
And you don't have hardly any weapons at all.
you start out with a pistol,
Yeah.
which is terrible for me because
Yeah.
I'm really bad at using a pistol. But then, yeah, the more enemies you execute and things that you do allow you to get different weapons, and then it changes the strategy. So it's sort of very clutch, like it's very stressful at times.
Awesome.
But it's super fun.
It really was.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's lay out, because I know everybody's like, ask about the campaign mode and ask about versus, ask about horde. So those are the key pillars of Gears.
are,
I
yeah.
hate using the word pillars. It's such a marketing term, but I used it. But they're the key sort of components of Gears. And so we're going to find out about Horde
Versus next.
Versus next, and
but
when's
the tech
that?
test is coming up.
Okay, and the tech test is
yeah.
coming up when?
It is the 19th to the 22nd.
Of July.
Yeah, and
Great.
you can pre-download it on the 17th.
Okay.
So get your Game Pass pass.
We're-
Does that make sense?
We're
And Game
basically
Pass
going to
Ultimate.
launch an EP Gears of War show later this year because they have a million modes,
We do.
and
We
they
have
can
a
come
lot
in
to
every
talk
week and
about.
tell us about new things
Yeah,
that are in the game.
that's true.
Okay, so
yeah, so it's over 2 weekends. So the
Okay.
19th to 22nd, and then 26th to 29th.
Okay.
It starts at 10 a.m. and I think it ends at 10 a.m. And so it's a great way to see versus mode.
Great.
And there's a few different modes inside that you can play.
Okay.
And so you'll get to see some of the maps in there. You'll also get to see Boot Camp, which is a new onboarding map that we have. So we've actually put our tutorial into its own little map and its own little
And
place
that-
for you to explore.
you just got to sign up and you're playing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to buy anything.
You can pre-order.
Okay.
You get into it if you don't have Game Pass.
Okay.
But Game Pass is a good deal because you
Right.
don't have to sign up for a maximum amount of
I
time.
think if you have an why wouldn't you
I
have
don't
Game
know.
Pass at this
It's
point?
the best thing ever.
Yeah.
It's like
Or-
gamer Christmas every day.
Totally. Okay, so you can get in, but you also have a show on TBS.
Yes.
What's that called again?
Brothers.
E-League.
But Brothers, it has a tagline. Of,
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Trails of-
Bonds and Betrayals of Brotherhood.
Okay.
That's what it's called.
Okay,
It's the
but
best name ever.
But
Can't believe I forgot that.
E-League is kind of the big
Yeah.
brand, and it's a TV show, a
It
legit
is,
TV show
yeah.
about Gears
Esports players.
competitors.
Yes.
And on this TV show,
Yes.
you're announcing. I'm telling you, we could have these guys on every week pretty soon. On this TV show, you're going to announce what?
They're going to be showing more of the versus mode.
Okay,
on
versus
there.
mode. But
Yeah.
but Horde mode info is coming soon.
Horde will be coming in August.
In August,
Yeah.
okay. Around
Yeah.
Gamescom
Around
time?
Gamescom-ish time.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
And then as we get closer to launch,
the campaign.
which is not far away, it's September.
No,
Yeah.
September 10th
Yeah.
is the
You
worldwide.
look
Yeah.
remarkably well rested for something that's coming out pretty
I'm
soon.
impressed you kept all that in her head, too. There's a lot of details there.
There's a lot of information leaking out my other ear
Yeah,
right
not
now.
just
Yeah.
this scholarship, but Zoe's sort of, the stuff that she's focusing on is the campaign,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
exactly what we cannot talk about at
No,
all right now.
Sorry.
Okay,
Well,
yes.
There's so much to talk about,
Yeah.
too. But yeah, that will be coming up. So
Okay, well, we'll have you back for that for
that
sure.
would be great.
Yeah.
Love to talk about it.
And congrats, because I know that this is an enormous game.
It
And an
is.
enormous part of Vancouver development in general. And
Yeah.
your team has, how big is your team now? It's like
We're plus 300.
300
Yeah.
people. You've mobilized a Spartan army to make
Yeah.
this unbelievable. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. So
Yeah.
we're all expecting to be floored by the launch of
Yeah.
Gears 5. So
We think people wear it like it's the biggest, most ambitious Gears we've made. So
probably the biggest
pretty
game out
excited.
of the city,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
That sounds
Right.
right.
that's
yeah.
probably true.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
hadn't
Yeah.
thought about that, but to date, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And we can't wait. And I speak for everybody here, but also everybody that's watching and every Xbox fan out
Thank
there.
you.
So very cool. Now, Blackbird has a storied history of involvement in some really big interstellar strategy experiences.
Yeah, that's right. The game that kind of launched the studio was Homeworld Deserts of Kharak, which was a prequel to the Homeworld series that put Relic Entertainment on the map back
Yep.
in the 90s. And a lot of
I interviewed Alex Garden. Garden? Yeah, Alex Garden.
Garden,
yeah.
I thought I was going to say Garland, but he's the writer.
The writer,
I always
yeah.
get those mixed.
Yeah,
Alex Garden about Homeworld, and he was like a 22-year-old kid.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was a little older than him, and he just went off and he said it's about spaghetti ball and it's going to be
Spaghetti
ships
ball,
flying
yes,
all over the.
totally.
I'm like, what? Who are you?
Yeah.
You know, you just went right into the pitch.
Yeah.
And all it was just to be a massive game, and it turned out to be this incredibly deep and revolutionary look at strategy and a
Yeah.
different way to play.
Totally.
And so Blackbird was built off of.
Yeah, so we were a few of the original founders. So the original Project Spaghetti Ball is actually the code name for
Yes,
Homeworld.
yeah.
There were 6, I think, founders, and we've got 3 of them at the studio that helped found Relic.
Yep.
So the art director of Homeworld is our CEO, Rob Cunningham.
Yep, I know
as well
Rob.
As, yeah, as well
Hi,
as
Rob.
as well as a few others from that team. So yeah, it kind of launched Relic, and then it also in turn has launched Blackbird, because that came out in 2016, and that essentially put us on the map. And it was interesting, like all development or meetings leading up to that point is when you haven't shipped something, nobody wants to meet you, nobody wants to shake your hand, but as soon as you ship something, everyone starts calling you up and talking about the future and what are you guys doing next. And from there, we went from around 40 people after shipping DOK to we're now 180.
So, Homeworld was a part of a Gearbox initiative, right?
That's right.
And did they publish the Deserts
Yeah,
game?
so
Yep.
Deserts of Kharak was actually the first game that they would publish.
Okay.
And since then, they've published a whole bunch of stuff, including like Fortnite physical. So they did the discs for Fortnite. They did Risk of Rain, which has been absolutely killing it on Steam. So we were there first.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, do you have this extended relationship with Gearbox, or are
we're-
you working with other people? At this
We see Gearbox all the time and talk to them all the time, but we're not announcing any partnership.
Okay.
Yeah.
You see, I'm trying, guys. Is Blackbird done with Homeworld, or is there more to mine out of?
I would be surprised if there were a quantum reality where we were done with Homeworld. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And any idea when we might expect you to be back on EP to tell us exactly what you are working on?
I can't say, but I do think that over the next year, there's going to be a ton of awesome stuff that we're going to announce that will include some awesome surprises, and yeah, I think people will be very happy with the news over the coming year. And they've waited 3 years since our last project, so.
That's awesome. And now your team is about 150 people or something?
180 is what we're at, yeah.
180.
Yeah, 180.
So we're talking to people that are working at 2 of the biggest studios in Vancouver, and there has been a lot of, somewhat negative news about studios closing down. Really what happens is that a studio may close down, but it shifts and morphs into a bunch of littler studios that start up. And unless people want to move to Montreal or
Yes.
or Seattle or something, most people stay in Vancouver, and then they try something else
And then
again.
we also hire a lot
And then
of
you
those
hire
people.
a bunch of those
So,
people. Yeah. So
we've
there are-
got some good Capcom people actually that are
Fantastic.
on my team.
That's great
yeah,
to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a lot of big game development happening in this city. Don't you worry about that. And we'll have them on EP for sure. But let's end with how do people find out about this scholarship, and how do they enter? Because you just sign up and you have a shot at this. Yeah.
The best place to go is the VFS website.
Okay.
It has all the information. So if you just look up Roberta Williams VFS scholarship, it'll take you to it. But just the VFS website is the best place to go.
Awesome.
And to get more detail on Gears 5, for things that I messed up the title for, Gears5.com has all the really detailed info for
Okay.
the tech test. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Awesome. Blackbird's working on secret stuff.
Secret stuff. Secret stuff.
So many secrets.
Thank you, you two.
Thank you so much
This
for
was
having
wonderful.
us on.
Yeah,
This was
thank you.
wonderful.
That's great.
And also, a big thank you to Roberta Williams, if she happens to catch this
It's
anyway.
from her boat
Yeah.
satellite. Yeah.
She's a legend. All right, you guys.